Hello friends, welcome back to this new course on psychology of language. This is my fourth course on NPTEL MOOCs. Prior to this I have had courses on cognitive psychology, consumer behavior and on human behavior or introduction to psychology. So I decided to start a course on the psychology of language. The question is, why did I think of a course on language or the psychology of language? One basic difference between us humans and animals is the fact that we can communicate with each other. We can talk to each other and we can express our ideas in ways which are far behind, far ahead of what animals can comprehend. We can pass messages between us, we can think and we can comprehend things, talk among each other and generate ideas and do a lot of other functions which animals cannot. One primary reason that animals are not capable of doing these things, of generating good ideas, coming up with new patterns, evolving in the chain of life, is because they don't have a effective medium of communication. Having said that, it's not that animals don't communicate to each other. They do, but the way they express each other, they talk to each other, they pass messages among each other is a primitive form of language. So, at the very outset of this course, let me give an explanation of what is the difference between communication and language. So, communication is a way of expressing ideas or sharing ideas between groups of people using basic symbols which convey limited information. Most of these communication are non-structured and only a few bits of information can be passed on from one person to another. Also, communication cannot be productive in the sense that messages which are passed through communication are very limited in scope. In contrast, language is a form of communication where messages are passed between people and these messages can be productive, can lead to newer ideas, can lead to newer understandings and it can mean a number of things. The same message can mean a number of things, can transfer a number of ideas and it can generate the same 26 letters in English can generate a whole lot of information which is passed between people. And so I thought that if language is at the so essence, at the so basic of the distinguishing between us humans and non-humans which are animals, why not take a course, do a course on the psychology of language. So, here I am with this course on the psychology of language. What we will do in this course is we will look at how communication language is different, how language developed and what are the full various rules of language, how these rules are used by people in communicating ideas, what are the foundations of a language and several other features of language. For example, how is speech produced, how is speech perceived, how are letters written, what are words, how are they expressed and so a number of things that we are going to study in this course. Now, since this is the very first lecture, what I will be doing is I will be starting off by defining what is animal communication, how animals communicate and how this communication, what is the need of this communication and how they are different from the language that humans use. What is the primary differences between them. So, what I will do is I will try and bring together these two features and do a comparison among these. So, as I explained, communication is a way of expressing ideas between group of people, animals or whatever they are. So, it's a way of expressing ideas or spreading ideas. Animals have a very basic way of doing this. It could be in terms of bird songs which are calls by birds which mean very specific things. Animal communication could also be the wiggle dance of a honeybee, which we will discuss further. It could be the squeaking of a crow, the strange sound which squirrels make to alert other squirrels in the herd, the moves and the barks that are done by certain animals. And communication is just not only limited to animals, humans also, or earlier humans also used to form or used to use some form of communication. For example, the smoke signals which are used for communicating certain kind of information relating to predators are a form of communication. And so, prehistoric humans also used to use communication. So, language basically is a medium of communication which is a very recent development. So, over the years, this science which studies the psychology of language is called psycholinguistics, and that is what we will be focusing on in this course. So, basically let us start discussing on what is animal communication. And so, I have here at the very outset a few outlines of what is that you are going to learn from this part of the lecture. So, after studying this section or this lecture, anybody who is interested in studying language should be able to discuss or should be able to know the four main purposes of animal communication system. Why do animals communicate? So, they will be able to pinpoint this particular fact. Other than that, they will be able to describe well studied animal communication systems such as the honeybee wangle and the wet monkey alarm calls. So, they will be able to distinguish these communication systems. The two different communication systems that we are going to take explicitly in this lecture is the honeybee wangle, which is the honeybee dance as it is called, and the alarm calls which certain kind of monkeys in Africa do, and these calls are basically to warn other people, to warn other members of the herd of certain predator calls, certain predator arrival or dangers that can come from environment. Another thing that you are going to learn after reading this section is discuss the ways in which many species use vocalizations to maintain social structure. So, you will also understand how communication is used by certain animals or certain species of animals as a vocalizations as a way of maintaining social structure. One good example is cows. If you look at them, they move, and this moving actually makes the herd, makes them come in a herd, or sheep which actually have a certain kind of a sound which makes them come in a herd, and certain movings also tell about the hierarchical structure which is there in the herd. And at the end of it, you will also be able to explain the four key characteristics of animal communication system. So, what are the major parameters, what are the major characteristics of animal communication system. So, basically then ethologists are the people who are given this chance or who are responsible for studying animal behavior. Now, as I said, if we want to study human language or the psychology of human language, we have to first start focusing on non-human languages, basic languages of animals, because that will give us the fuel, the basis on which modern day language was created and how modern day languages progress or they work. So, ethologists are the people who actually study animal behavior and animal communication systems, and they point out that the communication system in animals is intended to influence other organisms. So, basically the animal communications are ways are certain behaviors that people that animals do to influence other animals or other member of that particular group. It is also related to conspecific members of the same species are also influenced by these communications. So, these ethologists, they give the reasons or they point out that there are basically four factors why animals use communication. So, four basic reasons which most ethologists suggest that animal use communication are for finding food, for finding an enemy or foe, for finding a friend, or for finding a mate. So, 4 different things or 4 different reasons, factors why animals use communication system or animals use communication. So, what is communication then? Let us first describe what communication is. Communication is described as any behavior on the part of an organism which is intended to influence the emotional thoughts or behavior of other organisms. What this says is that if we want to influence or if we want to change thought patterns, behaviors, emotional vocalizations or other factors of other organisms, we should use communication. And so, communication is the way how you want to change or how you desire to change other people or other members of a particular group that you belong to, or maybe other group, how you want to change these features of these people. So, basically it's a medium of exchange of ideas, it's a medium of flow of information between two members or many members. Now, this communication, which is a behavior, which is defined as a behavior which a member of a group does to influence the behavior pattern, the thoughts, the emotion of other members of the same group, can be of 4 different types. So, as I said, communication is a behavior. Now, what are the forms of this behavior? In what ways this behavior are acted up? And so, there are various forms. It could be a vocal behavior in terms of the moves, the barks that dogs do, the mooing that the cats, that the cows do, and several other vocalizations, the bird song vocalization and so on and so forth. So, it could be vocal in nature, this behavior. This behavior can also be facial in nature. So, certain type of communications are facial in nature. Just by looking at certain facial or facial activities, other members of the group can understand or can decipher what a particular member of a group is feeling or what a particular member of a group is expressing. Generally, non-verbal behaviors are expressed in this way. So, whether somebody is angry, somebody is sad, or in terms of animals, by looking at the face of another animal, the kind of twitches that it does can communicate certain kind of information to other members of the group. Communication behavior or the behavior that we call communication can also be in terms of body posture. So, certain kind of body postures by one member of a group can express certain information, can express certain kind of or can elicit certain kind of behaviors on other member of the group. So, one behavior or one kind of behavior through which communications can be passed on is the body posture. And finally, we have odors also. So, odor movements or smell can also be one way of communication. So, you have seen dogs urinating and so on tires, on car tires, and so this is one way of communicating. So, it is not a random thing, they basically pass along the message that they have been moving through this place or they have been visiting this place. And so, odors are also a kind of behavior that animals do for passing out communication or for sharing communication, passing messages among other member of that particular species. Now, let us start looking at the 4 F's or the 4 primary reasons why animals communicate. And so, the first one is called food. Now, Austrian ethologist Karl von Frisch 1967 was one of the first group of scientists who first described the honeybee wangle dance with a communication about resources. And so, Karl Frisch was one of those leading scientists who actually described that food could be one of the reason or food is one of the reason why animals communicate. And what Karl Frisch described in detail, or the medium that he used to describe, the model that he used to describe that food is the reason why animal communicate, is the honeybee wangle. Now, what he said is that honeybees, they systematically change location of nectar sources. So, within the honeybees, the sources of nectar are not constant, they keep on changing as flowers keep on changing, as there are different regions in the field, and so there will be different regions where there will be nectars, and so the honeybees actually have to find where the nectar is, and so these nectar sources with seasons or with periods of time, with changes in the environment, they keep on changing systematically. What he found out is that if a honeybee, there is in the honeybee honeycomb, or the place where honeybees live, there is something called the queen bee. The queen bee does not do anything, she is only responsible for reproducing. The other bees are actually responsible for collecting the honey. So, the way that these honeybees, or one of these honeybees, when she gets to know a nectar source, how does she communicate this information to other bees of the honeycomb? That is what has been described by Carl von Frisch, and he believes that this kind of communication was, or this kind of communication, this kind of behavior that they do is that is the honeybee wangle that they do, is because they want to communicate to other members of the honeycomb that this is where the source of the nectar is. So, suppose a honeybee goes to a particular region and she finds nectar, how will she communicate this to other members of the group? And what Carl Frisch found out is that there is a particular kind of dance that this honeybee who have actually found nectar, she does to communicate the location, the source of this particular nectar. So, where is it this source, where this source actually lies, the direction, the angle, and the exact source. To relay this information, this honeybee who has found the source of the nectar, she produces a kind of a dance, and this dance is called the wangle dance. Now, the dance which is performed on vertical surface of the honeycombs, it reveals two things. One is the direction, angle from vertical indicates the angle from the sun. So, the kind of direction that she is going on to, and the other is called the distance, the length of the wangle correlate with distance from the hive. So, generally the waggle dance, the dancing that the honeybees actually do is that they will waggle dance, they will first waggle, twist their bodies, run, turn to the right to circle back to the start, and then they will do again a waggle run, turn to the left, and particularly going back to again the same starting point. Now, this kind of movement that they do, this kind of 8 movement that they do is actually indicating where or which side from the honeycomb they are going to find, the other honey bees are going to find the source of the nectar. The direction of the wangle, the dance to vertical axis, the axis on which the honeybee is wangling, provides direction to where the source of the nectar is. For example, straight up is towards the sun. So, if the honeybee is dancing at an angle of straight up, it is towards the sun that the source of the nectar is, and likewise for any angle subtending with respect to the vertical axis. So, if the honeybee is dancing and she moves straight up, then the direction of the nectar is towards straight up, or any angle to the vertical axis in relation to the straight up, to the perpendicular to the vertical axis, will give you the direction of where this particular nectar source is. Another interesting thing from this dance is the length of the waggle that they do. How far from the center of the dancing point, from the center of the start point, is the honeybee actually dancing. The more the length, the greater the distance of the nectar is. Let us have a look at it. And so, this particular diagram is adapted from David Luden's book, which I have been using for making these lectures. And as you can see, this is the waggle dance that we have. So, as you see, it starts moving in a particular waggle. The way, the height that it is making to this particular angle because this is my perpendicular, this is 90 degrees, this is my vertical axis, and the angle that it is making to the vertical axis, and in this case this is my vertical axis, the angle that it is making to the vertical axis will tell you at what angle the source of the nectar is. Also the distance that this dance is will tell you the direction. So, direction and distance are two things that this honeybee wangle will actually represent. And so, this is one interesting thing to look at, and this proves that communication or primitive language, as I would call it, is done by animals or non-humans. I would not call them animals, I will call them non-humans, to communicate ideas or to communicate information about food. So, one reason is for food, and this kind of dance is basically, or this kind of behavior suggests that honeybee wangles are done for food. The second primary reason why animals communicate, or the reasons for animal communication, is letting other people of the group know of a predator, of a foe, of a predator. And so, within this category, what one comes to know is alarm calls, which animals like squirrels do. You have seen a squirrel and Alvin the chipmunk and that kind of movies, and you see that particular squeaking noise the squirrel that makes, and this noise is exactly, there are different kind of noises which are there. Some of these noises are to warn other squirrels of a foe which is coming, of a predator which is coming. And so, what these alarm calls actually do is they warn conspecifics about approaching predators. Conspecifics are people of the same species. So, these calls, these squirrel squeaklings actually tell other squirrels that a predator, maybe a snake, maybe some other predator is approaching, and what they should do. So, squirrel chattering is an alarm call, and it is used to warn members of group about approaching predators. Another interesting study or model system which has been used to look at the reason for animal communications are vervet monkeys. And so, vervet monkeys like this, they, how do they interact with the offsprings, and what are the kind of vocalizations that they have, and what do they mean, was also studied. And it was found that vervet monkeys have three types of alarm calls. One is the eagle alarm call, and this eagle alarm call actually warn the other members or senior members of the group that a eagle is coming. What do eagles actually do? Eagles take away the smaller offsprings, and so this call is made to warn of an eagle. So, in terms of squirrel, they have just one or two types of vocalizations. In terms of the vervet monkey, there are three or four kind of vocalizations, and one kind of vocalization is very specific to the eagle, and this is to warn the senior members of the group that an eagle is there, and what this eagle is going to do is take away the offspring. They also have something called a leopard call. Now, the leopard is known to attack the vervet monkeys, and so this kind of call is made to make other members of the conspecifics of that particular species that a leopard is at loose, and this leopard might attack them and eat them up. And so, that is one of the reason, or one of the kind of calls that the vervet monkeys have been done. There is a third type of call, or there is a third type of action, vocalization, and that is to aware of other conspecific members of the species that a snake is there. And what is the snake going to do? The snake is going to bite them and they will die. And so, there are three different three different types of calls that is there. Now, there is a lot of research which has been done, and by varying the different calls and producing artificial calls and seeing how animals actually understand, or vervet monkeys actually understand these calls, and how do they respond to it. One another reason of animal communication has been in terms of finding friends, finding your place in society. So, animals also communicate to find friends. Dominance of hierarchy is one type of animal communication system, or animal communication output, I would say. So, social systems in which each member knows who ranks above and who ranks below is also expressed by certain kind of calls, and basically the cattle, they express a variety of emotional states through vocalization. So, this kind of mooing that cows do or cattle do is basically, these mooing actually tell, or these mooing actually express the kind of hierarchies that different cattle have, or different breeds of cattle have, or different kind of members of that particular cattle have within the structure. Also, certain kind of vocalizations in cattle are done to express mother infant bonding. For example, rat pups, they emit ultrasound when they fall from the nest, and these ultrasound or these vocalizations actually tell the mother cat or the parent rat that the pup has fallen from the nest and they should be taken back or they should be cared about. Also, humans infants cry out for their mothers, and this kind of crying that human infants do actually warn the mother of a state. Now, if you have seen small babies, they cannot talk. So, if they have stomach ache or if they have certain kind of problems, they cannot talk, and it is their cry that they do, the different kind of crying that they do, which gives us some hint, or maybe pediatric doctors, to what is actually happening. So, whether he is crying out of some pain or it is stomach ache or so on and so forth. And so, this kind of things also happen in humans. It is basically expressing the kind of discomfort that they are doing. The laughter, the crying, all these kinds of things are certain kind of communication. Also, social grooming is expressed through animal communication. For example, picking fleas and dirt from fur of conspecifics is one way of making social bonding. So, you would have seen bears and certain kind of animals where they pick out fleas from the skin of other animals, and this is a kind of a social grooming. It is basically making friend, and that kind of act, that kind of behavior is actually communicating that I am your friend. It is also used for building friendships, and it is a form of communication because it influences others' behavior. So, without saying anything, just the act of doing this make these animals come together or come near each other and act as friends. And so, one way of expressing, or one reason of expressing communication or using communication in animals is finding friends, either finding social grooming or finding dominance in hierarchy or a vocalization in as a infant mother bonding. So, animals and humans, they communicate, or animals generally communicate for also finding friends. And the fourth type of communication, or fourth reason of communicating, is finding a mate, and that is the most necessary thing in animals, getting your genes into the next generation. So, males advertise, males communication for a mate is done in specific ways. So, males advertise their genetic prowess to attract mates. For example, peacock feathers. If you look at peacocks, they are males, they have these feathers, and the dance that they do, the kind of act that they do, is basically for attracting females so that they can reproduce. Peahens do not have feathers, peacocks do have feathers, and peacocks are actually males. So, basically the kind of dance that they do, peacock dance that they do with their feathers, is basically attracting mate. Similarly, bullfrog croaking, the croaking of the bullfrog, you would have seen or you would have heard bullfrog croaking on a rainy day, and that is because attracting females is the reason for that kind of a communication. Bird songs. You have heard bird songs, singing birds, different kind of birds singing, and so the reason for these bird songs is attracting females. So, hearing these bird songs, hearing this cry, the wails of birds, is basically for attracting the member of another other gender to reproduce, to bring up the newer generation. Similarly, firefly lights, the lights on a firefly are basically a medium of communicating to a mate of the other gender and to reproduce. So, it is not only males, these are these four types of communications were through males, but it is not only that males communicate for reproduction. The other thing is that females also produce certain kind of communication systems, or have certain communication systems which attract males for reproduction, and one is the mating ritual. So, there are certain kind of mating rituals you have in dogs, in certain kind of other animals, and similarly the pheromones which are scents through certain molecules, the bodily molecules are also used by females. For example, female dogs or certain kind of the monkey, this kind of pheromones are produced by females to attract males, so that a reproduction can be generated. So, basically then this animal communication system that we have been discussing is basically for 4 different factors. That is what mostly ethologists believe, and these 4 factors are for either finding a friend, or either for finding food, or finding a predator, warning people of predators, or finding a mate. And so, basic reasons of this animal communication has been outlined in this way. So, then having said that, or having given you an explanation of what are the various forms or what are the various reasons of animal communication system is, can we then find out the general features of any communication system or animal communication systems. So, the very primitive communication system. Looking at various animal communication systems, some basic features or some basic characteristics of such communication system exist. The very first is called limited range of expression. If you look at vervet monkeys, they communicate about 3 different predators and nothing else, right. So, the expression that these animals can do, the kind of information that they can express through their behaviors, which is called communication, is very limited in nature. And if going back to the idea of what vervet monkeys do or squirrels do, is that since vervet monkeys have been studied in detail, so we are taking that example, and it is found that they have only 3 calls. Either it could be eagle call, it could be a predator call of a lion, or it could be a snake call, and these are the 3 communications, or these are the 3 behaviors that they can do, and they cannot express more than that. So, basically most communication systems in animals are limited by the range of expression that they can do. Another interesting feature of animal communication systems are that they are holophasics. The utterances of their the utterances that these animals produce are holophasic in nature. What does it mean? Vocalizations or gestures, they refer to entire situation, not specific objects or events. So, basically if you look at the waggle dance in honeybees, they can tell you about the entire situation where you are going to find something, you are going to find some kind of source, right. That the dance will tell you where is the source and how which direction it is, and what is the distance. But it is not going to tell you that if you go to the source, whether you are going to find honey, or you are going to find water, or you are going to find something else. So, it will not tell you the specifics of what you are going to find there, or what kind of flower it is there, what kind of nectar is going to come out of it. Those things are not there if you look at the waggle dance. And so, holophasics are vocalizations which refers to the whole situations and not the specific. So, they can give this communication systems, animal communication systems, tell you about a situation in total and not the specifics of the situation of what, why, where, how. Those kind of features are not present in animal communication systems, and that is why they are holophasic in nature. So, 2 basic general features of animal communication system is limited range of expressions, only limited features can be expressed, and holophasic, as the whole situations can be expressed and not the specifics. Another interesting feature of animal communication system is little ability to combine symbols to express novel ideas. So, novel ideas or new ideas or combining different symbols to form a new symbol, that is not possible with animal system. Bee dance, they combine direction and distance information, but nothing other than that. As we have looked at, that only specific information can be given to you, only some information can be given to you, not all kind of informations. So, these symbols that are there, the animal communication systems are there, they can be read as it is, they cannot mean something else. As with human language, the words which are being expressed and the meaning of the word are different. For example, the same word dog, inu, hund, kutta, all of them mean the same 4-legged animal, but they are different words. And so, different words make the same meaning. So, different symbols, different letters make the same meaning at the meaning level, although letters are different. That is not possible with animal communication system. Also, most animal communication systems are about here and now. They express situations that is happening here, that is happening right here and right now. So, when they express an idea, it is about the present situation. Animal communication systems are never going to tell you what happened yesterday or what will happen tomorrow or those kind of things. It will never predict about futures. It is just in the moment kind of a thing. It will tell you what is happening right now, what is going to happen right now, that kind of a thing, and they are able to communicate here now situations. For example, if there is a leopard call by the vervet monkeys, it will tell you that the leopard is here right now or the snake is here right now. It will not tell you that a leopard has come here yesterday or will come here tomorrow or what to do with it when he comes tomorrow. That kind of information is not passed on. And so, the 4 different things or 4 different general features of any animal communication system is their limited range of expression that they can do. The utterances are about the whole situation and not specific parts of a situation. They lack the ability to combine the symbols to give novel ideas or newer ideas, and they are always about the present situation and do not give you any idea about what will happen before and after a particular kind of a situation. This is about animal communication systems. But for us humans, things are a lot different than what animal systems are all about. We are different. Humans can produce language, can communicate in various languages, and this gives them the ability, the freedom to do a lot of things, to express ideas, to come up with newer thoughts, to come up with newer meanings, to generate so many thinking patterns, thoughts, ideas through certain or which are generated or which are passed on through certain symbols, and these symbols are arbitrary in nature. So, human beings can communicate among each other, and they can communicate not only about certain things, they can communicate about specific ideas, they can communicate ideas within ideas, and that kind of a thing is there. So, let us then look at in this section, after learning about human language, what would you be able to do. So, after studying this section, most people who is taking this course should be able to discuss the 3 important features that distinguishes language from other communication system. So, how language is distinct from other communication system, that is the first thing that you will be able to do when you read this particular section. Also, you will be able to explain the duality of patterning which gives language its expressive power. Duality of patterning is a feature which most modern languages use, and this gives us this gives any language its expressive power, the power of it to express various ideas, novel ideas, create new ideas, and so on and so forth. One should also be able to describe the basic level of linguistic structures from phonemes to discourse if you are able to clear this section or able to read this section. And once you are able to do this section, once you are able to read this section, you should also be able to explain how displacement differentiates language from one other communication systems, from other communication systems. So, let us start by this section by first looking at some of the basic important forms of human language. So, for humans, language is replaced by vocalizations. In humans, language replaces the vocalization that we see in animals. Now, we communicate with language, but when emotional language shuts down with emotional thoughts, language shuts down and animal vocalizations and face expression persist. So, although we use language and we are advanced by animals in this particular feature, when an emotional situation comes in, when a certain emotional expression is there, the language ability shuts down, and so what happens then is that we use basic primitive forms of animal vocalization and face expression to generate emotion. So, emotion basically is a form of communication system, is very akin or close to the animal communication system. Language provides emotion or provides emotion a particular base to express itself. Now, one basic form of language that humans use is laughter. Laughter is basically a social vocalization which we share with chimpanzees. We use it together with conversation to enhance social interactions. So, language is a form of social vocalization that actually humans use, and language is something which helps us to enhance the kind of conversation that we do. Now, when we are talking to someone and we laugh at that person, or we laugh in response to certain acts of that person, it's not that something funny has been conveyed. People laugh because they like that person and they want more of that person, they want that person to speak more, and that is what they laugh. And so, laughter is a way of communicating. So, laughter basically has evolved from labored breathing of rough and tumble play. It has come from this kind of a thing. Now, it means playful intent in both chimpanzees and humans. So, what is the meaning of laughter? As we discussed before, laughter actually means a playful intent. It does not really mean that we are laughing at certain information that the other person is providing. It is an intent. It is an intent of interest between people and chimpanzees, and as typical features of a communication system. So, one of the basic features, or one of the basic facts, social facts or social acts that humans have is laughter, and this is a form of communication system, or this is one of the form of communication system. Laughter and language. So, how they are connected? It involves the same vocal apparatus, can't do both at the same time. So, language and laughter, they use the same kind of localization, same kind of vocalization, but both of them cannot be at the same time. So, when you are laughing, language cannot come in. When you are producing a language, a laughter cannot come in, because they are using the same verbal apparatus. Alternate between laughter and language in conversation, and that is why we alternate between laughter and language in a particular conversation. So, basically then laughter actually encourages a conversation, right. Laughter, the way we laugh, the reason why we laugh in a one to one interaction or many to one interaction is because it encourages certain conversations. Also, as we discussed before, laughter and language, they share the same vocal apparatus. Language communicates most of the content in an interaction. Laughter is just a process of, is just a way of vocalization, but most information in any language is communicated through language, and laughter signals interest in continuing through the interaction. So, when in a conversation you are laughing and you are speaking, the language is communicating most of the information in that particular conversation, and laughter is what it is doing is it is signaling the interest of continuing the interaction. Another interesting fact of language, or another interesting form of language, is speech. Now, there are different modes of human language. Speech mostly resemble vocalized communication system. The way we speak, the way our vocal cords vibrate and produce speech is it resembles a vocalized communication system. Also, writing has taken on its own form of conversation. So, basically then various modes of human language, or various ways in which we can communicate or human language is, one is speech, which is a vocalized communication, the other is writing, as it's also a mode of communication between people, or mode of passing ideas between people. The third form of language, or the third form of communication in humans, is the sign language. So, with animals the form of communication is very limited, but with humans this is way far advanced, and we have many ways of communication. So, speech is just one way of communication among people. Speech is one form of language. Another form of language is writing, and the third form of language is also sign language, which are full fledged language independent of the spoken languages. So, in sign language, all information is communicated. In various forms of information is communicated, same signs and symbols mixed together to give newer forms of information, and they are communicated without using the spoken language. So, sign language is a form of communication that is used by humans, where information is passed to members, to conspecifics of the same species, but they do not require any spoken language. The primacy of speech, virtually all languages use it in a spoken mode. So, basically all languages use the spoken mode of, although written language and spoken languages are there, but most forms of animals and humans, they use the spoken form of language. Now, there are three important features of any language, and these important features are what distinguishes human language from animal language. So, we should be concentrating, as we saw that the animal languages or animal communication systems have 4 different features which are there. Similarly, human languages have 3 interesting features or 3 features which distinguishes it from any other communication systems which exist out there. First, human language, it follows certain rules. What are those? Components are combined according to certain rules. So, and these rules are called the grammar. So, the grammar actually tells you what kind of information or what is the way in which various parts of a communication or spoken, whether it is spoken, written or sign language, how they should be combined together, and these components then when they combine together to give meaning. So, if a language does not follow rule, it will not generate any meaning, it will not mean anything. So, rules are very important for any language, and so most in human languages have certain rules. And why these rules are necessary? These rules are necessary because if you follow these rules, then and only then it will produce any kind of meaning, any kind of communication of ideas, any better communication of ideas. Also, languages, human languages have a structure. So, not only they follow rules which says that how components are combined, they also have structures which says that components are combined within a particular structure, and this is called the syntax. The way communication, the way certain components of the language, how they combine together, in which format they combine, and this basic formats of combination actually tells you what it is going to convey or what a particular language is going to convey. The third form of any animal, a human language, is that they are use something called arbitrary symbols. Words are symbols bearing no resemblance to what they actually refer to. So, when we look at human languages, there are certain words that we use, but the idea is that these words actually do not point to what the meaning of a language is or what the meaning can be derived from the language. For example, let us look at the arbitrariness of the word. So, if I write dog, cow, inu, hund, if you look at them, all of them have different words and different combinations, right. And so, these words are arbitrary in nature, because all of them, this is English, this is Chinese, this is Japanese and this is German, and no matter what you do, no matter what these words tell you, they actually point to a concept of a 4-legged animal which is a pet and which we keep in our house, and they bark. And so, all of them actually refer to the dog. So, different languages have different symbols, different words which are combined together to give a different vocalization, but these vocalizations ultimately combine together to form the meaning. The meaning for all 4 languages, whether it is Chinese, Japanese, German or English, all 4 they use different arbitrary symbols, but they combine together to give rise to one meaning, which is the dog, and the dog is the same for all 4 languages. Now, animal communication systems may have some, but not all of these characteristics. So, animal communication systems actually borrow some of these information from the human language. They borrow some of, maybe is the structure or arbitrary symbols. For example, some arbitrary symbols which are used by animals and animal communication system is they have iconic symbols. Certain kind of iconic symbols are used, and these iconic symbols are arbitrary in nature, but they are expressed by or they are read by the conspecifics. So, animal communication systems, they have some, but not all of these characteristics that the human language has. Also, the human language is conveyed in 3 different modes. One is the vocal mode, which is the spoken language. As I said, human languages can be conveyed in 3 forms. One is the vocal mode, which is the spoken language that we have. The manual mode, which is the sign language that we have. You can often see in the American Sign Language which is used, or in sometimes in Doordarshan you would see a sign language news which are used for dumb and deaf people, and they do communicate everything, every idea which is out there, which the actor wants to convey to people who are listening to it, but then it does not have any spoken language. And then there is a visual form of communication or visual language in humans, and that is called writing. So, writing, speaking and sign languages are 3 modes of communicating or 3 modes of language that humans have. Then we also have human languages also have something called duality of patterning. And what is duality of patterning? Duality patterning gives language its expressive powers. The expressive powers that language have, the way it expresses, the kind of expression that it does is what is duality of patterning. It is a process that takes units at a lower level and combines them according to rules into new units at a higher levels. So, duality of patterning says that basic level sounds or basic level components or basic level units are taken together and they are combined to give higher level units. Now, there is no relation between basic level units and the higher level units, because higher level units, when basic level units combine together, they give a different kind of a or altogether different kind of a expression, altogether different kind of a meaning which is there. And how is this combination done? So, they combine the basic level units into higher level units according to rules into new units at a higher level. By repeating this process many times, a multi-layered structure of great complexity can be built out of small set of simple events. Look at the human language. Basic speech sounds are combined together to form words, which then combine together to form sentences, which then combine together to form meanings of sentences. Right. So, you have there are 40 phonemes, there are basically 40 speech sounds out there, and these 40 speech sounds then combine together to form the 26 letters of the alphabet, which then combine together to form multitudes of words, which then combine together to form a sentence, and the same letters, 26 letters and the same 40 phonemes can mean everything in this world, can mean whatever you want to read in this particular world. So, structuring process. So, duality of patterning then is basically a structuring process that takes units at a lower level, combine them according to rules to form a new unit of higher language, right. So, basic duality of patterning is, and why duality of patterning? Because the lower level, the speech sound that combines to form the word, and then the word that they combine to form the sentence, they have no relation to each other. These words will never predict what the, so speech sounds will never predict what the word means, and the words will never predict what the sentence means, and the sentence will never predict what the meaning of the whole structure or the whole paragraph is. And so, that is how the duality of patterning is. Now, small set of simple elements such as speech sounds can be combined to form complex structures. Given language virtually limit, given languages, this particular duality of patterning gives the language virtually limitless expressibility and a whole set of expression or a whole set of the words and ideas can be actually expressed through it. Now, the building blocks of languages are phonemes. The first step or the first form or the first structure of any language is called the phoneme, which is a meaningless speech sound. The ba, ma, pa sound, these are the basic sounds which are there, and they form these are speech sounds which form these are meaningless speech sounds which form the first level of any language. Phonemes, they combine to form morphemes. So, these phonemes, these speech sounds, they combine to form very small words, for example, ing, for example, ly. So, kind, kindly, or noun ending, for example, run, running. So, these are this morphemes are combining these phonemes to form very simple words which have no true meaning as such. So, phonemes combine to form morphemes which are the basic units of meaning, and then morphemes combine to form words. Now, these morphemes, they combine to form the whole words, and the words combine to form phrases. So, these words then combine to form certain phrases. Phrases are actually sentences or parts of sentences which have which are not complete, but they can stand on their own, and phrases combines to form sentences, and sentences form to form discourse. So, sentences actually lead to discourse, and these sentences are formed of something called words and phrases, and these phrases are combination of words, and the words are combination of morphemes, and the morphemes come from phonemes. So, that is how the whole idea of language comes in, or the whole idea of this, the way human language is defined. Now, what I have done today, we will look at the pyramidal structure, the pyramidal structure of how language is organized in the next class. And so, since this is the very first class, so let us do a quick recap of what we have been doing up till now. What I did in this class is that I tried to introduce you to the psychology of language, and I gave you enough reasons of why we should be studying psychology of language, what is the need of studying language at all. Now, study of language is required because this is the only way we can understand how people communicate. Now, whether you are an artificial intelligence scientist, or whether you are one of those people who are designing computer programs which can read, you need to understand how languages are structured, how languages operate, and how do they communicate ideas. And so, the understanding of how human languages or animal languages work will give you an idea of designing intelligent systems which can understand people. The Google translator that you use, the Google Assistant that you use, these are modern, these are forms of, these are developments in human languages, and they came by because machines are now able to understand human languages. With humans, if two humans are communicating, they can understand the language and they can understand the reason behind the language, but machines will not be able, never be able to feel the emotion behind any language. So, machines will be able to carry out order, but they will never able to feel the emotion behind the language. And so, that is the psychology of language, or that is the reason why you should be able to, or why you should be coming to this course and studying the psychology of language. So, we started off by looking at what is the difference between communication and language, and we focused on what is communication and what are the characteristics of communication. Then we started off by looking at basic communication systems, which are animal communication systems, and we looked at why do animals need these communication systems, and we found out it is for food, it is for predators, alerting somebody of predators, or it is for finding a mate, and these are the reasons why animals actually need a communication system. And then we looked at the characteristics of such a communication system. We then moved on to study what is human language, and we started looking at what are the basic formats of human language. And so, we looked at vocalizations of speech, we looked at laughter as a medium of human language, and that is where we dealt with these are the primitive forms, or these are the basic forms of language which I have been using. Then we discuss some of the characteristics of human language and what these characteristics actually mean, and from there on we started looking at the structure of language. We also looked at something called duality of patterning, which basically says how language, what are the features of language, or how this arbitrariness of symbols of a language, how they combine together basic level units into higher level units which do not actually interact in reality, but then they form the basis of meaning of any word or phones or any expression which the basic unit is actually giving you. So, what we did in this class is we started off by explaining to you why we should be studying language and some basic reasons or some basic primitive forms of language, and how these primitive forms of language combine together to form the actual language system. Next time when we meet, I will be explaining to you how the pyramidal structure of language exists and how human languages function, how human languages are built, how do they function, and what is its role in evolution, and what is its role in expressing ideas. And so, the course will progress in that particular manner. So, for now, from here it is goodbye. Thank you.